Then I started to try and use social media to push. What I find is when I'm on a social media platform and someone, as a fellow artist to someone else. So my Instagram right now, my Instagram stories are just incredible musicians, right? I'm just seeing just this incredible, and it's giving me it's giving me two things. It's telling me that I'm not good enough. And so there's no need for me to put out my art because it falls short to what I'm seeing, to what other people already have access to and can be entertained by. But then at the same time, it's also saying, it's inspiring me to become a better artist. So it's just this really, really crazy dichotomy. I can't tell if it's very healthy to see this, but in a kind of self-marketing, social media influencing perspective.
Knobloch's Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, Process Production and Social Media. Hey Knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobloch's Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Hello everyone, this is your host Raina
and Azaria
of Dance Behind the Screen podcast, and today we are speaking with David Dingus.
So David Dingus began sound composition and recording at the age of 15. He began releasing his work to the public during his sophomore year of college, and shortly after began to receive collaboration requests from Georgia College Department of Theater and Dance. Since then, David has composed for plays, dance recitals, film, and social media posts for companies like Bare Minerals and Tory Burch. David was a Kennedy Center for American College Theater Festival national finalist and received honorable mention for his composition and studied under Tony Award-winning sound designer Rob Kaplowitz. He was also awarded Best Music at NYC Webfest 2015 for his music in R&J, the web series. He holds a Bachelor's of Music Education from Georgia College and hopes to begin a master's program at his alma mater in the coming months. Thank you for speaking with us today, David.
Woohoo! So, David, we have a couple of questions. How would you describe your career, and what is your process for creating music for dance?
I love how this question was worded because it gave me an opportunity to say that I am one of those people, not necessarily by choice, but I'm one of those people who what I do for my career is completely different than what I do in, some people would call it a side hustle, but really it's more of like a work for passion, and because I get to choose my hours with that makes it a lot more more of a natural process and a little bit less of a like I need to crank out a product. So just in my regular career, I'm currently an academic advisor at Georgia College, and that opportunity not only allows me to go to graduate school for free, but for now it's kind of giving me pause with what I've been doing for the past 3 years, which is teaching elementary school in music, and that's kind of that's what I feel like I was born to do. It's just that's more of my element because I love hanging out with kids and making music with them, and kind of being around people who are really likely to let creativity flow without necessarily feeling self-conscious. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of allows me to be more creative in my own time when it's not the same work that I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the second part was, what is your process for creating music for dance? That really has to do, there's kind of like a spectrum when someone comes to me and asks me to make music for that specific purpose. Oftentimes the follow-up question is somewhere between, do you have something in mind or do you want me to go crazy? And there's usually, there's never just exactly what the client wants or just exactly what I want. So I kind of had to find that spot with the person that's commissioning me to see to what effect they want to be involved in the process of creating the music itself, because you'll find that a lot of I wouldn't necessarily say that I know a lot about dance, but I would say that a lot of dancers that come to me know a lot about music, and so they kind of have an idea of how much they want to get deep into their own vision, and so that can kind of steer a course for me. Yeah.
Interesting. So going kind of off of that collaboration process, has it evolved for you since you've been doing it longer? I'm just curious to hear more about this idea of you bringing ideas to the table and the choreographer bringing ideas to the table and how that negotiation works.
Yeah. So the very first time that I was given the opportunity to make music for dance, I was studying. I took a class during college just because I was interested in it, and it was about Alexander technique. Mm-hmm. Totally changed my life. Who taught it? Julie Mulvihill she just finished her doctoral program for dance, and she's asked me to do some commission work since then. But that very first opportunity was the first time that I was ever asked to basically make something that I wouldn't have just made in my own time, and so that was kind of interesting. It was a new idea of what music was, because now music had a purpose rather than like an exploration of self.
Yeah.
And so she said, I want you to make music we're trying to choreograph The Little Prince. And so it was more of an abstract because there wasn't a lot of costuming and planets and things like that. So it was really more of, it was an inspired dance of The Little Prince. But then, shortly after accepting the project, she said, it's going to be 16 minutes long. And so to go from having not ever done anything like that to creating music. And also at the time, I was very limited in hardware. So I had like a karaoke mic, and I had a keyboard, and I had a guitar, and I just recorded things layer by layer. And if I go and listen to it now, it would give me a headache. I'm sure a lot of people like to listening to themselves or watching themselves from years past. But all of that to say, at the beginning, she said, here's the concept and here's the amount of time, go crazy. And then the second and third time that she asked me to do that, years later, she would start to give me some of the feedback that I had gotten used to at that point, where she would say, well, this is great. I have a different feeling for this part. And then she would describe a feeling, because she doesn't necessarily speak in theory or in harmony or any of those languages. So she would talk more about feeling, and then we would kind of explore that. And so that's kind of how it's evolved. It's just that the people who have given me opportunities are becoming more and more explicit about what they want.
Yes, nice. And to continue, that music would not give you a headache. I performed in that piece actually, and it was beautiful. So
I can't even believe that. I thought maybe I was too old for you to be a part of that or something.
In The Little Prince. How would you collaborate, or how do you collaborate with other artists? So besides dancers, but maybe other musicians and maybe filmmakers. I know you've been in some film projects recently.
Yeah, so the opportunity that I had to work with R&J the web series, my understanding of the R&J the web series is they were creating Shakespeare in a modern way with episodes, and they were also creating lesson plans alongside that, and it was kind of a package deal that was being sold to public and private schools to say, we know that Shakespeare is unapproachable. You as a high school English teacher are having issues getting your students really into Shakespeare. So we've developed these lesson plans that couple with these episodes. And so they kind of broke down famous Shakespearean plays. So R&J, of course, is Romeo and Juliet. And so I thought that was a really neat idea, and I was immediately on board. And I said, sure, what do you need? What do you want? And he just came back and said, go and listen to this song and then make me that, but without having any copyright issues. So basically he wanted the exact feel of a song, but he wanted it just dissimilar enough, if that's a word, that he couldn't be pegged for it. And so that was really interesting to hear from like a filmmaker's perspective, because I suppose that director had such a vision but not a budget. Like I was the second choice, and so that was kind of interesting too. With other musicians, to be honest with you, I don't necessarily throw things back and forth a lot with other musicians. I find that that the musicians that are very close to me are their own artists, and although we care about each other immensely, and we're basically in each other's company on a weekly basis, we find it really difficult to make music together. And I think that's just like me personally, as a not play well with others person, and that's a grow for me, absolutely. And I also think that the language of production is starting to be really weird too, because if I could be less or more of a musician than another person, but then they could be less or more of a producer. So when they see products with the end game in mind, and I see the process at the beginning, where we're just writing the concept of the song.
You are listening to Navbox Dance.
But have you ever improvised with other musicians or jammed with other musicians, and what that experience was like?
I think, to be honest with you, and I really think it's just that I haven't exercised that part of myself. I actually recently went to an open mic night here locally where just for a few minutes that was something that happened. But I have a unique, I think it might just be the fact that I was raised by computers, but I have a unique obsession with the fact that if I create art and it's not recorded, then it was wasted time. And so there's not a lot of opportunities where I make music for the sake of making music, because I want to be able to capture it, study it, use it as a scrap in a future project. I can't tell you how many projects that I do where I'm using things that the 19-year-old me made. Even if just a small sliver of a musical idea, the fact still stands that I'm stealing from my past self. And so there's not really much of a draw for me to go and just have a jam session. As freeing as I think that would be, and as healthy I think that would be musically, because a lot of times if every time you sit down you're trying to make a product, you do begin to burn out.
You've seen a shift in how people use your music? For example, with the growth and accessibility of music through the digital space, have you noticed how people are using your music?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that as music is becoming more accessible, that the world of art is becoming white noise, in a sense where it's sort of a good thing and sort of not a good thing, because when we have this feeling of globalized art, then we hear the best of the best, and we hear it quickly, and we hear it on demand, and that's all fine and well, except for the fact that the artists that have the best support with distribution, the best support with production, the best support with having the time and the funds to show their talent, and to not work a day job or something like that. Those are the people that we're going to hear, rather than when it was local, it was more of a by word of mouth, and effort could bring you somewhere. Whereas now it's collaborative effort can bring you somewhere. It takes a lot for someone to kind of break through the ceiling of Spotify plays alone.
That's very interesting concept when you said this globalized art, because I think a similar thing is happening in dance as well. And looking through the lens of social media or main shows, if those are the people who are getting the most money to back it up, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the best dance that's going forth, but it is that team effort and that money that honestly can get you somewhere, which could be a good or bad thing, no necessarily a value judgment behind that.
And another thing, I think we could be here for an hour just on the point that I'm about to say. And Azaria and I had this conversation in the past, but I feel like there's no other occupation where you can record something that you did and then 50 years from now, your grandkids can collect royalties from it. So I really don't like the way that music works right now, where sound and air pulses, they can somehow be captured and monetized. I really think that art should be experiential, and that you should really only have to pay for the in-person experience of, which some people would argue that the in-person experience of would be blasting it through some really nice speakers, which I might agree with that as well. It's just I just feel like if a dancer is not going to make money after they put their show on, and then it goes away, and there's not recorded evidence of it that's being lucrative in some way, then there's no reason why Elvis's descendants should be making money on a weekly basis. Yeah, something's wrong there. But you might. Another thing for anyone that's curious about my music, it's all on streaming platforms, and fortunately, the way now, 5 years ago, if you wanted to put your album on Spotify, it was going to cost you $100 a year, and now it costs about $7 a year. You can find a distributor because the demand is so high. People understand that the way to be considered as sort of official or verified or anything like that, the demand for that has gone up, and so there are more suppliers for distribution, and so that makes it really easy for me to put, $7. All my music is on Spotify. It's absolutely free for anyone to listen to, and anyone who doesn't have a subscription to a music platform, they can just simply log on to my Bandcamp account and listen to it and download it for free and all that kind of stuff. I really like that those options are out for anyone because just Friday I was trying to explain to someone what kind of music that I made. And I said, well, what kind of streaming service do you subscribe to? And they said, I don't. And so to be able to say, it's on YouTube, it's on Bandcamp, you can go and listen to it and download it for free. That I want to make sure that there's not a single person in the world that can't be inspired by creativity. I think that anything that's worth being recorded is worth being shared and distributed in an accessible manner.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
That's awesome.
And going based off of this accessible manner and people having access, we know that you said that you worked with elementary students, and that's kind of your where your heart is. So I was just curious about the impact of the arts, whether music or dance, that you've seen on your students.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna do the bring out all the stats about how musicians may have better test scores and all that kind of stuff, because all that research. So I don't need to be an advocate for that. I think anyone who wants to listen is, and anyone who doesn't want to hear that is not. But I will say that personally, it's sort of a cycle of success where the students who are interested in, all of my students had to take a general music class, but we had a 4th and 5th grade chorus that was an opportunity by audition. And the students who wanted to be a part of that group were already some of our higher scoring students on tests, are students that were well-rounded and a part of other things. And actually, I was teaching at a science and math magnet school. So I was the only arts teacher in the school, which you could tell because the 5th graders could not draw a stick figure, which was kind of sad. But because of that role, I tried to develop lessons that not only combined it wouldn't be not only music but also dance. And then whenever there was really an option that was instructional and purposeful, I would try to add drawing and things like that into it. But yeah, I mean, the impact is huge, and the students who want to be a part of those extracurricular musical activities, those are already our higher scoring students, and then I have to imagine that it compounds on itself.
Right. So do you believe that our education system should focus more on STEAM rather than STEM, which I know is a big kind of hot spot right now? Yeah, absolutely. Education philosophy is insane, and I'm just about to get back into it with grad school. I really think that STEM is a great idea because it's preparing students to become practical and to get a job.
And so that's kind of thinking, that's putting the student's best interest in mind, which is great. But a person who gets a job has to have a well-rounded personality. Otherwise, that person is going to suffer, and the people around that person is going to suffer. So when you limit someone to if you limit someone's education to what they intend to do, then you're going to be missing out on a whole lot of other aspects, because they don't work 24 hours a day. They also have to play well with others. They have to be entertained. They have to, in some cases, get married and have a family. And so you're going to create a cycle of people who are one-track minded in a way. And so I think that as far as education, it should really be more about giving students the tools to be self-sufficient, giving them practical tools that they can use to kind of teach themselves things, and then to also give them that creativity.
How does social media influence your career? How do you feel like it has influenced your career?
At the beginning, when I was making music as a kid and MySpace was a thing, and that I think that I would have tried to have shared some music if I could have gotten my recording together, but it wasn't until college to where I could actually bounce a track into something that was just distributable. And at the beginning, it was, I made music. I'm going to post it on Facebook for my Facebook friends and say, I made music, and if you'd like to hear it, here it is. I did that for about 4 albums in college. Then I started to try and use social media to push. But what I find is when I'm on a social media platform and someone, as a fellow artist to someone else. So my Instagram right now, my Instagram stories are just incredible musicians, right? I'm just seeing just this incredible, and it's giving me it's giving me two things. It's telling me that I'm not good enough. And so there's no need for me to put out my art, because it falls short to what I'm seeing, to what other people already have access to and can be entertained by. But then at the same time, it's also saying, it's inspiring me to become a better artist. So it's just this really, really crazy dichotomy. I can't tell if it's very healthy to see this, but in a kind of self-marketing, social media influencing perspective, if I kind of take that same frame of reference, if I have a friend who's actually talented, who's pushing themselves on social media and nothing's happening, then that's discouraging. And then if I have a friend who's not very talented, who's pushing themselves on social media and they are gaining traction, that's also very discouraging. So so for me personally, I've never really liked the modern way of, let's put out a single, let's wait 3 weeks and let's hype. Let's put out another single. And so because I've had such a problem with it as an audience member to it, I struggle with really attacking it on my end. So last year was the first time that I had ever tried to distribute music and to really push it. I started to create social media. I changed Instagram to a business tag. I printed out these fake Pokemon cards that had my album on them that you order. So I tried. I got other collaborators involved. I had 3 or 4 musicians on the album that I had asked to come in and do some stuff with, or to mix it, or to produce it, or to give me advice on how to distribute it. And I had the same result. I had 2 moms download it, and I had 3 friends download it. And that's okay. And that's when you make the music for yourself and you're not trying to sustain a living off of it, then that's fine. But I just can't imagine what it would be like for someone of any talent level to try and do the things that I'm doing and make it their full-time job. My heart goes to those people.
You are listening to Navvox Dance.
Okay, so David, you've done a lot of talking about this influence of social media for you personally. And I just want to kind of bring it a little bit broader and how you think that this practice and this influence is influencing the art field in general?
Oh, wow. I think that, oh, wow. I don't even know what I think, to be honest with you. I ponder this question every day, and globalization is it's having an effect on art. It's having an effect on politics and legislature. And I think that in social media and globalization and things like this, they're really pushing ethics really well. And so ultimately, I'm very, very happy that what's going on is going on, because I think that the things that are problems are a lot more accessible. There are a lot of things that you can see are going wrong, and that's the first step to a change is to make sure that there are less and less people who don't believe or can't believe that something terrible is going on the other side of the world. So I think ultimately this stuff is great. I think for the world of art, it's not great. I think that if we can encourage people to be more, to have their eyes artistically in a community, even if that community is a larger geographic region, the problem is that the people that are right next door, that are putting in a lot of time and effort and actually know, as a person, as a culture, they're what's funny about it is that an artist is going to take in everything around them and then make it and then spit out some sort of product that is them, but it reflects the things around them. And so instead of really having enjoyment of context, to say that my friend who wrote a song about someone that I know was involved in this artistic process, and so I feel closer to home with this piece. It's more of an exploration of community. Whereas with this globalization of art, I can see that it's beautiful. I can see that it was a lot of collaborative effort, and that ultimately was a lot of hard work by a lot of great people. But I'm not getting the sense of purpose unless they hand it to me in a really trendy, chopped up video that explains, the reasonings behind things. So I think we're missing. I think we're missing impact.
As we wrap up, we have our Flash 4 portion, where we ask all of our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash.
Flash 4.
Sure. So David, question number 1. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be? It can be a book, podcast, someone to follow.
It's got to be freesound.org. For anyone who's interested in sound design or sampling or anything like that, if you need royalty-free audio to start you off, especially if you're someone who's not going to go out and buy a MIDI controller or an instrument, or you're not going to go and torrent a bunch of different sounds and songs and things like that. So freesound.org is my favorite place to kind of browse through. It's like the Google of random sounds. So you can go and type in bird and just see what comes up.
2, what was the first dance that you saw, David?
I wanted something really thoughtful for this, but I gotta hand it to you, and it might just be like a reflection of culture of dance. But I saw the Nutcracker at the Fox when I was very young. That was the first time that I had seen like an actual dance production.
Question number 3. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
I don't know if I'm deep in it enough to have an educated answer, but I want to say no.
It's okay.
All right.
Any answer is okay answer.
Yes. And our last
question,
what is your favorite social media platform? So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter.
I like Instagram. I was hating on it, but I really like how I can see all of my favorite musicians grow old. It's great.
Well, thank you so much for your time, David, and for sharing your thoughts with our audience. Could you please one more time share with our listeners your social media handles and websites so that they can stay connected with you?
Sure. For Facebook, you can just search David Dingus Music. My Instagram is at David Dingus. That's spelled DINGESS. You can search my name on YouTube, and then daviddingus.bandcamp.com if you would like free downloads of my past 2 albums. And just message me if you want the other 8 ones, but I'm not gonna put those out publicly. And then daviddingus.com is my domain, but it just has yet to be set up. So in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David.
Thank you, David.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.